So, guys, thanks for having a look at the first episode here of Ask the Experts. I'm joined today by Lewie Lett, a good friend of mine based down in Bournemouth. So, Lewie, if you'd be so kind, could you just give us a bit of a background in terms of info on yourself, how you got interested in coaching, where you studied, kind of coaching roles you've had before, and what ages and athletes you're currently coaching at the moment?
Yeah, I think I got into coaching. First of all, hey, sorry, I should really say hello. Yeah, I think first of all, I was curious about, always as a kid, about getting others into sport. And I don't know if it was natural or I always quite liked helping other people out. So I think that led to my curiosity into coaching, being a bit of a sports nut. I started coaching cricket at 16 with now Richard Scott, who's head coach of Middlesex Cricket Club. And that really gave me a great start into coaching. Very knowledgeable guy, very good technical coach, and learnt a lot from Richard. But then I decided to go and be a ski teacher, which was great, fun. But also you learn a lot within teaching, coaching. But also what I learnt from being a ski teacher was the complete diverse range of people that you end up meeting and the situations that you're in, and there's a sort of lot of growing up fast and a lot of adapting to working with kids or very nice private clients. Then came back to study, and I fell back into volleyball due to it being my sport growing up with cricket, football and skiing. My dad is also a coach, so managed to start coaching alongside him. And signed up to a degree in athlete development, and then sort of everything clicked into place. That I was doing what I felt like I was really meant to be doing as such. That then led to a psychology degree, a sports psych degree at Bournemouth Uni, and through that time I was always working full time through my degrees, coaching a lot of junior athletes and then senior athletes, all sort of doing quite well and being successful, which then led to me coaching. I'm interim actually at the minute for the head of English beach volleyball, which took me on a completely different journey for the last 3 or 4 years. It's been really exciting. So that's a bit of the background. 3 or 4 different sports, working from the sort of 4 years old to right the way up to elite, which has been interesting. Done a lot of work in schools. Working from reception right the way up to sort of sixth form as well.
So people talk about being a multi-sport athlete in terms of like athlete development. You've been a multi-sport coach in terms of your coach development.
Yeah, and it's been really sort of an interesting journey to take some things from skiing into volleyball that could relate to balance, or some skiing into working with primary school kids that again relates to balance, and that there's a lot of things that are closely interlinked in all sports that you can find can progress near enough everybody.
Cool. So, given you kind of had quite a wide breadth and depth of experience, I'd say, how's that kind of shaped your philosophy on coaching? What would you say is your kind of philosophy on coaching now?
I think it doesn't always change, but I think it's changed a lot over the last couple of years. I've become, I'd say, better educated, more educated in what I do and how I try and do it, and I've also reflected more on me instead of reflecting on what the athlete needs. Mm-hmm. I reflect on what I have to do to create the best learning environment that I can. So a lot of what I do now is trying to develop leaders, learners, and problem solvers, even from the youngest sort of children that I coach at 8 years old at the moment, up to the elite ones. A lot of it is trying to provide that sort of, I don't know the right word, the sort of best learning environment that you can provide, and then ask questions to try and promote the right answers.
So rather than being kind of the fountain of all knowledge and the keeper of information, you're trying to get them to get into the process of solving their own problems and becoming their own coach.
Yeah, and being, setting up processes where they can actually reflect on their thoughts and try and find the answer. And I think sometimes a good example would be last week when I had my under-18 girls qualify for a national final, and in the last game I don't think they're that happy with me. I didn't really say a word. Mm-hmm. we've done a lot of work on roles and responsibilities, and then they can communicate themselves and lead their own team talks and timeouts. And I just listen to the answers and see if I agree or not. Sometimes I don't, but actually, is it right for me to step in and say something? I chose not to. Even like in the National Cup semi-final, I chose not to jump in. Sorry, hang on a second.
Okay.
Yeah, chose not to jump in, and it's just an interesting thing at the moment that, not that I'm playing with, but what I did find was a real desire from them on court, because they had to solve their problems because they couldn't look to me for the answers, which keyed off a total different type of sort of motivation from them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess typically people think about coaches as kind of being this Yoda-like character that you kind of turn to and say, okay, what are we doing wrong? And instantly you get this analysis and, right, you need to, change this about your arm swing, or you need to do this. But actually, when you have a good coach who does that thought-provoking process of going, okay, well, what do you think is going wrong? And what do you think is the solution to the problem? It can kind of look at like lazy coaching, kind of like I'm actually just here, I'm just wearing my tracksuit, just enjoying the environment, watching the game, and then we'll just let them get on with it. But actually, that's a good coach, a confident coach, someone who equips their players and their athletes to become mature in their sport.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's quite... Sorry, I'm talking to you while I'm led on bed. Something that's quite interesting at the moment is I think sometimes when you do step in, you stop the learning from happening. So sometimes if you do decide to cut in and say something, and this is definitely the old me, and where I've still probably got traits at times where I can't quite help myself, and then I reflect on it myself. But if you step in, you're probably stopping them from learning at some point and figuring out something for themselves, and by providing them with the answer, if you want the information to be retained.
And it's kind of a way to create weak performers, isn't it? I mean, I recently was reading that Carol Dweck's mindset book, and he's talking about how people with fixed mindset who get to high positions, when they walk away, they want things to fall apart because it shows how good they were. But people actually who have a growth-minded set in leadership, actually when they leave, they want the team to be even better. So it's this difference in how you would approach the team. If I'm the holder of all knowledge, I want the team to do worse when I walk away, because that shows how great a coach I was. But actually, if I can leave and the team goes on to bigger and better things, then maybe I don't look that good.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, I don't know, every coach has got that little bit of ego sort of centered bit in them, because they do want to be a sort of game changer, I guess, and they want to be the guy that goes and wins a trophy. But I think what I found out by reading that same book and others is that actually the exciting thing comes in watching light bulbs go off in people's heads. And that's where I'm getting my buzz at the moment, is when I can see someone figure something out for themselves, even at the really young age or the elite sort of level. It's a really exciting thing to see that happen. And I think one thing that I said to one of my girls the other day is that when I do stop coaching them, I want them to be able to do things for themselves. I want them to go away to another program or to do something, but actually feel like they've left with not a better person as such, but a better thinker and a better problem solver.
Like, you almost want to be able to pass that person on to someone better, but actually have equipped the athlete to go on to bigger and better things, rather than just making yourself look good.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know, time will tell that you can still have that rapport in 3, 4, 5 years with an athlete who will still come and speak to you, because they feel sort of, I don't know, the sort of relationship that you had throughout the time when you're working with an athlete, that they have that trust and that respect to come back and ask you questions, which I think is sort of the pinnacle of what you try and achieve.
So you've recently started a new business, Playground to Performers. Can you tell us a bit about that, what it entails, what your long-term vision is, where you're currently at with it?
Yeah, it's sort of something that I've wanted to do for quite a long time, but with, I don't know, travelling a lot for the last 3, 4 years, I haven't been able to to get my head around what the product was sort of going to be finished as, and have the time to go out and deliver it. So now I've got a little bit more time to get out and see if it does work. So playground performance is basically myself at the moment, and I see myself as as an adaptable coach through my experiences over the last 10 years, working in the playground right the way through to performance, but also bringing those performance principles back to the playground. So a little bit of a spin on words. So with the primary school stuff that I'm doing at the moment, it's really promoting well-being through sport. So within the sessions that I'll deliver, or the programs that I'll deliver, I'm very much looking at how we can promote well-being and sort of, I don't want to say change kids, but really make an impact on the way that a child will manage, whatever what word they use at a young age. Are you still there? A little bit frozen.
Yeah.
So yeah, yesterday, for example, we would go in and we would work on hand-eye coordination, and it would be a completely normal session for them in quite challenging, all based around the growth mindset stuff. So different levels that they can achieve to keep on improving. But the sideline would be the thought detective, so they would become very aware of what they're thinking. They would they'd be their own investigator into their thoughts, and they would try and realise the difference between a good thought, bad thought, helpful thought, and then they would try and apply it into their sport, into their exercise, and see what sort of difference that made. So that's very, very much what the product's about is trying to create problem-solving kids, but also with a little look at how they reflect on themselves and how they learn themselves, instead of always waiting for someone to teach them something.
Okay. So at the moment it's just primary school kids you're working with. How does it work? Is it an after-school club? Is it in school time? What's the situation?
There's a few different things at the moment. I'm in one school every week, and then I've got 4 after-school clubs starting after Easter. But it's all very new. It's only 2 or 3, sort of a month old really, since I've sort of got all my branding out and sort of the products on paper. So it started very quick. A lot of schools are very interested, and now it's about developing the program and writing some really cool stuff.
Cool.
But it's really interesting. Like yesterday, I had one child who does have some issues at home, very angry child, and what he came up to me and said, I didn't ask him to come up to me at all, and he said that when he feels, what he learned is when he feels angry, that he now knows that it doesn't help his thinking, and what he said is he doesn't think smart when he's angry. So he now knows that he can control that, and sort of, he's 8 or 9, so it's hard to sort of translate how he said it, but he had a real light bulb moment that can help transform his life a little bit, and that's what playground performance is about, because a lot of the principles that we're teaching can be taken out of the sporting sort of arena and put into the classroom or into life.
Yeah. So what's your long-term vision for playground performance?
Currently, I just, at the moment, it's sort of dipping my toe in the water, see what the reaction is from the schools, which at the moment is very positive. I really get excited about running holiday camps, but educational ones, so very, very fun, challenging, but based around having workbooks and working through what can you control, what can't you control, managing the mistakes, sort of what's body language, and how does it affect others, and then taking that into sport and seeing them then reflecting on the positives and negatives.
You can see that would be massively beneficial in a school scenario, because it's instantly transferable, isn't it?
Yeah, and everything is about being transferable. But as we speak about with Kirk Pittman quite a lot, we agree that better people make better athletes, and that's good for us as coaches, but it's also great for them as pupils or even adults. But it took me, I don't know, maybe till I was 23, 24 to start learning this stuff. So if you can implement that in the playground now, then it's going to make a bit more impact on hopefully the lives of quite a few quite a few kids who, whether they play sport or not, it doesn't matter. Like it's about trying to make the differences. Like to that one child yesterday, it made a complete difference on the way that he sort of looks at life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is really rewarding.
I can see teaching in FE at the moment, so teaching 16 to 19-year-old kids. I'm seeing that every day. Kids who aren't thinking, who are just going through the motions of automatic pilot, coming in, doing their thing, and not being analytical in solving their own problems. And they want to be spoon-fed. And I guess that's part of the issue with the education system is there's this teacher up the front who's the holder of all the knowledge, and they have the answers, and the answer is yes or no, and it's right or it's wrong, and there's no kind of like next level thinking in terms of analysing, thinking critically and kind of asking questions or encouraging them to ask questions. It's like, we need this answer on the paper for the GCSE. That's why, because you want to get a good mark.
Yeah. Like if we can get these kids ticking the boxes, then it looks good for Ofsted and everything else.
Absolutely.
But actually, it's funny to see what skills from school are actually transferable into life once you get past 16 to sort of that 16 to 19 period. I don't know. Again, just doing a little bit of just having a little look around growth mindset, and there's a really interesting conversation on the forum online that was based, I think, from a teacher that spoke about how one of sort of her students A's in absolutely everything, but then bummed out and didn't go and get the job that they thought that they should deserve. And that's very common, isn't it? And it comes back to what are you teaching, what are you rewarding. But I see also reflects to growth mindset, because kids who do achieve very, very highly at school can get a fixed mindset very, very quickly. I find that in sport a lot, that the athletes who have achieved a lot at a young age are also the ones with a fixed mindset very, very early.
Yeah, I'm talented and I'm on the path to success.
Yeah,
regardless. Yeah,
and they already know, and that growth mindset of always learning sort of tends to abandon them. And there's a lot of athletes like that who I can see at a young age, and I think that goes right the way across the board academically as well. You achieve well at school, and all of a sudden you're destined for that pathway to success, but it doesn't quite happen like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of your career as a coach, who would you say has been your biggest influence?
Interesting. I'd say there's quite a few. I would say that obviously from an early age, I mentioned Richard Scott, cricket coach. Obviously my dad being another coach who's always been around and helped me and given me opportunities too. Other people, I try and take a bit from everybody, and then I sort of, you make yourself, don't you? You take bits that you like from everyone, and then you have your own ideas. But I like reading about Eddie Howe as well.
Obviously, big Cherries fan yourself, so
yeah, bit of a Cherries fan. But I like the way that he's all about the culture and the culture that he's brought into the club, and that's something that I really, really like. Having read Legacy as well, and books like that. But if there was one, I could name probably six or seven. You've got the coaches who obviously make nice drills, and then you've got some more sort of people who see it as coaching, a bit like myself, as more of a developing the person and the hows and the whys.
Yeah. And
you create the drills around the hows and the whys, and why you want to do it and how you want to do it. Mo Glover is very good for that, Olympian. Quite inspiring to work with, very enthusiastic and knowledgeable. But if I was to have one, I read the question and I was like, there's a lot. I like reading stuff from Clive Woodward when he was with the rugby team. He's a great influence. He's really, really good developing leaders and stuff like that. So
cool.
Now, how about you?
Actually, when I was writing these questions out and kind of getting, I think I had one coach when I was about 15.
Yeah.
He was at the time, I guess, it wouldn't still have been Yugoslavia. Would have been Serbia now. But he was actually used to be an athlete himself. Went to like World Student Games or whatever for what would have been Yugoslavia, and he was just a part-time S&C coach at my football club. a guy called Jovica Petrovic, and we were doing stuff that 10 years later, having been through uni and studied, I was like, geez, when I was 16, 15, he had us doing all the right stuff. We were doing all the things from a strength conditioning point of view that was bang on. So I would say, yeah, he's probably one that kind of opened a door that I didn't know existed for me in terms of career progression. So probably, I guess, almost a catalyst rather than maybe the biggest influence, but someone who was kind of started something.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. You get influences from everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, and I mean, another guy who, to be honest, has been one of the biggest influence on how my coaching's changed is Andrew Gillette from Sport England. I was on a course with a few volleyballers, fencers, for elite coaches, and he just completely changed the way that I looked at coaching, and made me completely more reflective on myself instead of what does Jake need, what does Chris need, what does he need to do. Yeah. And instead now I'm like, okay, when I go into a session, I'm like, and this is now where I talk when I do some tutoring myself, like it's totally changing. Like, what does Lewie need to do to make the learning environment sort of happen so they can learn as much as they can? And that's been a real big change for me.
So what would you say as a coach, what's been your biggest success? So whether it's on a personal level or at a sporting level?
Wow. I think the biggest feel good factor, so that comes into mine, was actually the Continental Cup at home when we beat the Swiss in our first season. It was our first season as a team playing internationally, playing against an Olympic, a guy who come ninth in the Olympics, and we managed to beat them 2-0 to win the competition, which was great. But as a sort of achievement, in the first season with the national team, we made 32 in the world in the season rankings, and qualified for Baku, the European Games, and that was a real great feeling with low budget. I think every other team that qualified has budget, has funding, so really it showed that we were doing a lot of the right things, and we were sort of shortening the loop and finding ways to make gains as quick. Yeah. That was a real great thing, getting 32 in the world in the first year and qualifying for Baku with three international medals, 4 international medals on the way. So yeah, it was a really good start.
Not bad at the string of results.
Yeah, no, they did really good.
So what would you say on the flip side? What's been your biggest failure, or maybe your biggest learning curve?
Biggest learning curve is, again, going back to what Andrew was saying on the course, is allowing things as a coach to slide down a rabbit hole. So really not dealing with issues or situations and nipping them in the bud as early as possible. And then because of that, you start to slide further and further down this hole, and then you make assumptions based on what's happened before, and assumptions are a horrible thing. And that's my biggest regret in coaching. Actually, it's nothing to do with sessions or delivery or results or anything like that. I think when you go to the performance environment, it's all about how you manage relationships and how you work with relationships. And I think in my reflection, I think I did do my best, and I have always tried my best to be a coach that's, I think, is a value that's held quite close to me. Is I quite like being a guy that's liked. But I think sometimes I could have nipped things in the bud a little bit earlier, and as a consequence of that, we would have shortened the loop again and all learnt faster. So that's something that I really want to take forward now, as I'm a lot more upfront, honest, and thrash things out.
Okay.
And I'd say
what in your current kind of roles across the different kind of bits and pieces that you're working, what challenges are you kind of currently facing or having to think around?
It's a little bit quiet for me at the moment in a performance setting. I'm the lead for the World Uni Games, so I'll be the head of 4 support staff going out to Estonia. We've got selection and trials coming up at the end of March.
This is beach?
Yeah, for beach. So that's a really new one for me. not been in a situation where I've got sort of 18 to 20 athletes all gunning for 4 spots to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my biggest challenge is now how do I develop these relationships, get the best out of these people, but also try and keep an open and honest environment. And I've never been in that situation of having to run trials and deliver that sort of news to people. So that's my biggest challenge: how I deal with these situations now, but also how I can make the best learning environment for not just the 4 going, but the sort of the other 6 who might not go when we whittle it down to 10. So it's quite exciting.
It sounds a bit like a reality TV show.
Yeah, I think they could. I think you could make a reality TV show out of it. But yeah, it's quite an exciting thing because I'm looking at it from a well-being perspective and trying to keep everybody motivated and keep everybody involved, because you know what it's like for an unfunded sport. If you can keep people training, then it's better for everybody. But there's going to be some challenges on the way to what are we putting first, the performance on the day, or are we putting the whole squad as a sort of as a priority as such.
Yeah, and there's always the danger, isn't there, when you cut relationships and then you get an injury or 2 and suddenly your 3rd or 4th choice, who maybe now isn't so happy with you, actually is getting called back into the squad, and you've got to stitch things up fast.
But we've got a really competitive trial. Like I look at the boys' side especially, and there's probably all sort of 16 of them could easily go with a range of different people. They're all at a similar level, so it's quite exciting. It'd be quite a good thing to do, but it's a good challenge as well to try and plan the program as such, and then the sessions within the program to get that ultimate learning environment. So trying to set a culture, but we only see each other once a month. So if we see each other one weekend a month, where can we make gains outside of that training environment to keep? I guess I always refer to it as trying to sort of pull the lorry over the line, and then see how it goes.
So obviously you mentioned previously Jake and Chris, who you were working with for quite a while in terms of the beach circuit, and you took Jake and Chris out to a place in the States, didn't you, from an S&C point of view, to kind of get the best you could out of them physically. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience out there?
Yeah, we went to LA. We've been twice, we've actually been 3 times, but twice for the off season. We looked the first time to stay with our S&C coach, who's still working with them now, who's really good, called Ian Wood, the conditioning centre. But the second season, we decided as a team that it would be really good to have it's okay, I'll just leave it there. Thank you. Be really good to have someone monitoring the sessions and writing the programs in the States. I think the thing that was amazing about Velocity again was that sort of culture of what you were diving into. So you'd have NFL, you'd have cage fighters, you'd have all your UFC fighters coming in, and you'd be training together in similar sessions, obviously different programs, but every day you went to the gym was an inspiring day with a very, very good coach. But you're gonna ask me about the programs.
No. I was just interested to know your perspective on the experience. Is that something you would do again? Did you think it was beneficial? What was the pros and cons?
To be honest, we were, when we were working there, Jake was very much involved at Velocity, but Chris was taking time out due to having personal problems at home. So Jake really did find it really beneficial for him. The problem is that when they went out on the road and Velocity wasn't there, again it didn't quite carry through. Where obviously at home with Ian, the boys do come back through the summer and they can tap in with the S&C coach and they can catch up. So actually, from a monitoring point of view, working with Ian and the conditioning centre is perfect, because they've got that constant dialogue and that constant feedback from the coach, where in LA it's very hard just to go and tap in when you get back through June and July, and you very much as an athlete have to be trusted to go and do those programs on your own, without much guidance or any support. So that was the great thing about Velocity is when you were there, it was great, but then when you were away, obviously it's very hard just to catch up with someone who's a 10-hour flight away.
Yeah.
But from a performance perspective, it's a phenomenal spot.
So what's next on the agenda for Lewie Lett? What have you got in the pipeline? What's coming up in the next sort of your next kind of 12 months? What are you aiming for in the next few years' time? What's your long-term kind of thoughts?
In the near future, the universities thing with the British unis is going to be great. It's a good opportunity for me to lead a support team. Obviously, I've been away travelling with the guys, and it's been quite a lonely place. We've also had Emma Kavanagh, who's travelled with us a bit.
Yeah, hopefully getting her on in a couple of weeks' time.
Amazing, she'll be great. But apart from that, I've travelled without a support team, and that's been really tough to travel for all these tournaments, trying to fulfil all the roles of a coach, but being on your own with no one to sort of support you through that as well. I'm really excited to have my first crack at having 3 or 4 people with me to work as a team and a support team. But the long-term game, I think, is to try and develop the next 4 years in the UK. It's an exciting time with the Commonwealth Games, potentially, well, it has just been announced. So that gives us a real good kick to push through a lot of young athletes, along with Jake and Chris, and on the female side as well. So there's a good challenge there. But I still have a desire to coach at the best possible level that I can. But I'm also excited by taking everything that I've learned to the playground performance level and working at that level too. So I'm sort of really open to where my career takes me, because I think that I'm a lot more grounded now, and I just, from an ego perspective, I'm not about winning everything anymore. I'm about trying to develop the better people and the problem solvers. So actually my kicks can come with a 8-year-old, sort of as we spoke about yesterday, but it can also come with an elite athlete sort of finding a way through as well.
Yeah, cool.
I'm really open to any challenge, which is great. As you know, you learn from everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can only imagine from a growth mindset point of view, I guess, going from, as you said, being on the road on your own and not having a support structure to now hopefully walking into a situation where you do the benefits of what you've learned of doing it on your own, but now, not that it's necessarily easier, but there's certain roles that maybe you could relinquish and concentrate more on the kind of high priority stuff.
Yeah, and it's really exciting that I can, instead of dealing with an issue on court or maybe going to warm a team up, for example, I can be thinking 1 or 2, 3 steps ahead instead of always having to think in the moment of what's best for the boys. I can think about, okay, they've got that sorted. I can move on and scout, or we can set something up. So it's a good time. It's an exciting time. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to the kind of technical coaches out there currently coaching young kids, I guess, the ages that you've mentioned?
Don't stop the learning. Don't stop the practice. Find other ways to communicate. I see a lot in every sport of people really trying hard to get their point across, which is great, but actually the kid could go 3 minutes without touching a ball.
Yeah. So I remember, that was one of the things I remember as a kid in Perth. I remember I had like one season in a professional football academy that was based out there, and we had a coach that would always say, "Stop, stand still," and come into the drill and tell us what we were doing wrong. And I remember this is the most frustrating experience. I'm here to play football. I don't want to stop and stand still every 2 minutes.
Yeah, but there's so many other ways that you can get that information across. You can pull one out, or you can ask, or you can get something really quick instead of stopping everything. And I think sometimes the phrase is just let the learning happen. And as a coach, sometimes it's really hard to do that. And I think every coach has been through that, and a lot of coaches are still in it. And that would be my one advice now: is what situations can you set up where actually you don't have to speak, and if you do have to speak, it's a quick question to ask them what they're learning, or a quick cue to try and make the light bulb go off, which is really exciting coaching. It's really exciting coaching when you can start to have those sessions.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned a couple already, but are there any books or resources that you would recommend? Anything that you think this is kind of recommended reading?
Yeah, the coaching habit at the minute
Okay.
is what I'm on.
Hmm.
Really good. It's about sort of how to lead better and to speak less. So sort of doing less, but actually doing more, which is what you've found out that I'm sort of currently about anyway. So it's very much, I'm reading it, and a lot of the stuff I feel that I'm already doing, but it's giving me a little bit of theory, and it's speeding up my learning process a bit. So I won't say too much because it's a good read. But if you're all about sort of trying to empower leaders and try and empower the learning through letting them do it themselves, it's a really good book.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't read it. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, it's really good.
Cool. And then where can people find out more? So where can people find out more about Lewie Lett, volleyball coach, about Playground to Performance? Where can they get touch base with you?
Facebook, Playground to Performance.
Yeah.
Gonna be where it's coming. Everything's coming through at the moment. Yeah, well, there'll be a website that goes alongside that very, very shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Or my email is louis at playgroundtoperformance.co.uk.
Cool. Brilliant.
They're really cool. Obviously, if anyone who does watch is really into this, trying to improve, trying to sort of make better people through coaching, and then see where it takes them in the sporting environment, then it'd be really good to catch up.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time today, Louis. I'll let you get back to it. Appreciate it. I hope it's been beneficial. It's always good to talk to other people about pick their brains and get some ideas, even if there's just one thing you take away. So I've found it really interesting, and yeah, definitely going to go away and read The Coaching Habit now as a result. So thanks for your time.
Yeah. No, thank you, mate. Really, really good.
Cool. Hope to speak to you soon and touch base in the future.
Yeah. Have you got me?